Hey everyone, welcome back to some more RPG craft, where I've been using command blocks to try and add some more RPG elements to the game. So I've finished off our little item frame runes or traps, or however you want to phrase them, essentially just triggerable effects you can place on the ground and walk over them. If you take an item frame and you put something in, heal's not a good one because I'm in creative, speed will do. Essentially, you just have to walk over it to trigger the effect. The item gets deleted, and then you can reset it essentially. But we had these first few, I think there's 12, right? Yeah, so the initial 12 are very simplistic, and they have 3 variations. So a player, a renewable, and expendable. So for instance, just paper and a normal item frame, the whole thing gets deleted. The glow item frames, the glow item frame stays. And then if you use a specific item, it targets just the player. And what I've actually come up with for this top row is really, really interesting. So they're a bit more complex. And in comparison, the command block chains are, well, some of them are longer and they're a bit more varied. For a normal trap, I just need 4. These ones I've tinkered with and made them a bit more specialized. And we've come up with some really great different effects, ranging from just simple things like recovery to some more complex ones like defend. So for instance, this turtle egg one, so if we grab out myself an item frame, it's fine, and we grab our turtle egg, what is actually happening is, as long as you stand on the item frame, you're given resistance. As soon as you move off, you lose resistance and the egg is consumed. So you can set up little like defend points. And as long as you can stay on item frames that have an egg in them, you are essentially invincible because it's resistance 10. Obviously, if you get knocked back even slightly, the egg will most likely be deleted and you'll lose your resistance. So it's just an interesting checkpoint type of thing. You could barricade yourself in, I guess. Jumping up might trigger it. I'm not too sure about that one. Yeah. So if you jump on it, no good. But my favorite one by far has had to be this one, swap. So I've contemplated how to actually add like elevators and teleporting systems into Minecraft. And what I've come up with is quite astounding, at least to me. So previously we have our little arm stands. So if you throw a certain block onto the ground, chainmail is that one. So I can do it like this. We'll end up over here. But these item frame ones are a lot more unique and have varied use, from long distance to short distance to more complex travel mechanisms. The other big thing is the arm stands have a built-in chunk loader, and that's in a previous video if you do want to check that out. But this one is a bit different. Essentially, as long as you have 2 points, you can teleport between the 2. So that was probably pretty bad, but I am over here, if you did notice that. Everything looks quite similar. You know what, we'll put one in a bit better spot to show off. So yeah, so if you walk on one, you get teleported to the other. It does consume both ender eyes, and the way around this would be, obviously, you set up multiple, and it will just teleport between all 4. There's a bit of a delay, so you can work on the timing. If I can get it right. Yep, so we didn't trigger the second one. The other thing I do just want to swap is I think I have it set to closest, and it would be a lot better if it's furthest. Well, would it? I'd have to think about that. Because essentially the way it works now is it will try to teleport you to this item frame first, and then to the ones over here, meaning you can't do long distance and have a way to essentially come back. If I swap it to furthest, you'll teleport from this side to this side, and then you have the ability to, if you're quick enough, to walk off and not trigger the second one, and that way you have a way to teleport back, which we might just swap over if I can remember which chain it is. That's levitation. Ender Eye, swap. Yep, so this is the one we want. So it's teleporting here, and this should be execute at, if you can see this little line here, how it says sort nearest. We change that to furthest. It will always try to target the furthest item frame. I can find out where it is on here though. It should be execute at sort nearest furthest. There we go. So essentially the way it should work now is we should teleport up there first. Oh, I was not quick enough though. And then we can come back. Oh, I might have not triggered it. Yeah, actually, there we go. Walk the other way. We'll try it from here. Nope. Yeah, obviously, it'll take a bit of skill to figure it out. We did alright that time around. But there's even more to it, because you can place them wherever you want, essentially. Because they are item frames, you can place it upside down, you can place it on a wall, and have little portals. I just thought it's by far my most creative system that I've come up with, and it's surprisingly simple once I sat down to actually think about how I wanted to orchestrate it. I'm not sure if we can trigger this, because essentially the way entities work, ooh, 1, 5, there we are. So my head is touching the item frame, but your actual hitbox is the bottom, so where your feet are. So there's no collision with the item frame, therefore it's not actually detecting that we're on top of it or in it, so to speak. So it's not triggering the effect. So essentially, the current method is you can have chains set up like this, teleport to far away. You can have one-way chains by placing it on a wall. Because essentially there's no way to actually trigger this unless you can obviously float. I'm not too sure actually if you can block. No, so I can't get the collision. I'd have to delete this block behind it without the item frame deleting and then walk into it. So it's not too bad. So yeah, so you've got one-way teleporters. If you stick it on a horizontal surface or obviously facing down, and then you've got two-way systems that if you're quick enough, and figure out which way you actually have to walk. So it's teleporting us further. So this one should go to there, so I need to walk that side. Ooh. Come on. Oh, which side am I on? Nope. I'm gonna get this. Quick on. Oh, I'm in the middle at least. That's something. I am kind of tempted to add a delay, but it makes the timing and the checking a bit more difficult. We'll go over a few of the other ones, but I think I will just put the commands in chat for everyone, and we'll just go through it quickly. It's just the fact that it's pretty instantaneous. It doesn't cause a lot of lag. You can obviously place an item frame anywhere that is loaded. That'd be fine. So we'll leave one up here, and we'll pop down here. And back we go. How nifty is that? Alright, onto the commands. So it was this chain, I believe. With 6 command blocks. The version of command blocks is very fundamental to this. I have not figured out a way to essentially use any other methods, because I don't like chain command blocks or repeating command blocks. If you've seen my other video, they cause a tremendous amount of lag, almost as bad as redstone dust when set to find entities. And a lot of the mechanisms I built obviously use entities. So if we just start off, we'll do them in little segments by the little... So this is the conditional bracket. So these 3 command chains operate off one another. I think I just messed that out in chat. Give me a sec, I'll clear the chat and then we'll go through them properly. Okay, so the first... Oh, let's bounce. That's a different one. Also an interesting one, but we'll get to that in a second. This one. 1, 2, and 3. If we take a look in chat, these are the command block chains. So from here, execute at, and execute at. And essentially all we're doing is we're searching for the glow item frame and then detecting what item is inside it. So in this case, an ender eye, it has to have the name swap. So you can't just place an ender eye, in case anyone wants decorations or anything, I don't want them messing up. And then if there's an empty on top of it, so in a radius of 0.5, so half a block, it's going to tag the player with tally active. So that's just lets the command blocks know that this player is ready to be teleported. The second step is then to execute at the next command block. So to do this, we tag the initial command block, the one the player is standing on, as P active. That way it won't be registered as the item frame to teleport to. So again, we're just searching for that item frame in this first segment, and then detecting if a player is on top, and then tagging, in this case, the entity item frame and closest. Well, distance is 0.5. There's no overlap because obviously one item frame to one other item frame is greater than 0.05, 0.15, 0.5, half a block, just say half a block, so much easier. Okay, so then the third step is to obviously teleport to the other one. So again, we're starting at the glow item frame the player is standing on, so same sort of starting bracket. So then the next step is to obviously teleport the player to the other item frame. So again, we're just starting at the item frame. So in this case, execute at item frame as long as it meets all the conditions. Then it's going to run a second execute at. So this is very important because the first execute at determines the initial point, and then the second at determines the closest, or in this case, because we swapped it, the furthest item frame from that initial point. So essentially, we're mapping out two little dots or coordinates and using the execute at to swap between them. So then it's going to locate the furthest item frame that does not have that P active tag. That's why we have to tag the item frame we're standing on. And it's going to, of course, teleport any player with the active tag. So to make it shorter and sweeter, we're tagging the player, we're tagging the item frame, we're finding an item frame that isn't tagged and teleporting the tag player to that item frame. And then this is just the tag cleanup. So once a player's being teleported, they will have their tag removed, so tally active from the player, the item frame will be cleared, and the item frame tag will be removed. And that way, it's a continuous system, so you can reuse the item frame over and over again without it locking, putting them between the two. So now we can just, obviously, reuse them. There are a few other ones. We'll go over the defend, because it's a very similar mechanic. It should be one of the shorter ones. I think it's this one. Yeah. So again, it's very, very much the same whenever we start out. We search for the item frame, and then we locate a player standing on top of it. Then we start to run its effect. So in this case, it gives resistance in 1 second intervals to a power of 10, as long as the player is still within that item frame. Now, this is where we've swapped it a little bit. So we're executing at a player. So we're executing at the item frame only if there's not a player on top of it. So we're looking for the tag that we've given to the item frame, which in this case is def active or defensive active instead of my normal, I think I just use like P active for player active. And then if the player disappears from said item frame, so they move off it, so that's this little unless clause, the item frame is going to remove the entity data. And that's the actual item. So it is a lot of random jargon to learn, and it does look a bit complex and overwhelming, but it is a lot simple once you get down to it. A lot of these, there's little things you can just swap out. So for instance, this glow item frame, that's the only thing you really have to worry about. If you want to change it from an item frame to the other item frame, this ID is the only thing you need to change to differentiate between different items in the item frame. Display name, so of course we're running named items, make the player have to use the anvil experience to actually use these mechanisms. So a few other ones, what do we have? So heal is just health, that one's not too special. Speed, that's also not too special, but from here on out. So sneak, I think stealth if you go over it. Blackout is more of a trap sense. If a player walks over it, they get darkness. It should be you. And I think it might actually give it to any player within a certain radius. So it'd be good for traps in your base, just entryway. Just clear it to make it easy. Defend, we went over swap. Okay, bounce, station, and siphon. Siphon's another really interesting one. So we'll do bounce first. Bounce is a pretty fun one. Its usefulness is not too great. We'll go up the top. That's probably the easier place to utilize it. So essentially, this is bounce. You do not want to move off this. Wouldn't be fair if I didn't leave a little bounce pad. I am tempted to cut it down to only one slime block. That will make it a bit harder to line up on. But obviously it makes this not an easy way to convert a single slime ball into 9 blocks. Because that's another thing I didn't really think about, is I've made certain items a lot easier to get. Granted, you'd have to go through jumping. So you'd be shot up every time you wanted to farm it, and you can't. You use entities to farm it, because all these item specific ones, rather than books or paper, are only triggerable by players. The other big one's station. So, Shulker. This is probably one of the most useful ones, especially traveling. Essentially, as soon as you walk on it, it starts to spawn all these different utilities. So you get a chest, and you get all the basic crafting systems. A blast furnace instead of a normal furnace. Smoker for cooking. Repair, anvil. Blocks if you want to. Just in this little figure. Don't even know what to call it. Not figure, it's a diamond. This little diamond. I thought that was one of the more useful ones. Quality of life little thing. Make it a bit easier. You're going out in the world, you can just bring item frames and shulker shells with you. But Siphon. Siphon is another one I'm really glad I could think up. If we swap over into... Actually, I want to grab them first. So we need nether stars. So this one is fairly expensive, but for a very specific reason. If we swap over to survival, I have no experience. That's unfortunate. We'll give ourselves some bottles. What are they? Experience bottles. 64 will do. So we have 64, we have 0 levels, which is a pretty good starting point to actually show this off. So for instance, if we were to use, I don't know, say 32 of them, so half the stack, whatever level we get to. I know there's a bit of variation, it's not exact science, but from 32 experience bottles, we got to level 12. So what Siphon actually does is allows a player to actively convert their experience into bottles of experience. So like all the other ones, all you have to do is walk on it, and like Defend, you have to be stationary on it. So if we walk on it, you can see our experience drops down, and we're getting bottles of enchanting. As soon as we walk off this, the nether star gets deleted, so it's not reusable. And you can see there is a deficient, so we converted 64 back into 59. But obviously, they're not things you would necessarily have, and it's just a good way to stockpile or save up your experience in vanilla, mind you. Because again, this is just vanilla with an excessive amount of command blocks. Right, the last one we'll take a look at is Doom. This is another more unique mechanic, and it plays off of the Defend one, so the turtle egg, being that as long as the player's on top of the item frame, the effect, well in this case, won't trigger. So all Doom is, I'm going to put this away, doesn't really matter that I'm in creative. The Doom, as soon as you walk on it, nothing happens. You walk off it, and you die. Look at me, I'm right at spawn. Oh, I had one extra bit, didn't I? But yeah, so if we put it back, there are a few ways around it. So if you drop an item, it does not trigger. If I go near it and collect that item, it will still trigger. So obviously you'd want to destroy it. Oh, the item frame was actually still triggered. So you have to destroy both parts because of that tag system we used before. I'm pretty sure if I put anything in this item frame... Actually, no, it should have been cleared. Yeah, so it has been cleared. If we walk on... Ooh, I might have to extend it. So the corners, apparently, as well. I think, though, I do have it set to deal with the closest entity, so you could use a patsy. I wonder if armor stands will work, since they are an entity. Not sure, I don't think I can place it on this block. I can, though, place it above it and drop it. Okay, so it's not triggered. Should. Yeah, so it's trying to delete the arm stand because arm stands can't be killed, obviously. But fine, if I break it, yeah, then it goes back to trying to target me. Because the actual item frame won't be cleared until the effect has been triggered. So it's essentially as soon as you walk over to it, it's activated, and until you either destroy it, it's going to try and delete the closest entity possible that it actually can. So that's why items do work. So I wonder, how can I do this? Essentially, I want the item to be closer than I, but not on the item frame. So if I drop it on the edge here, yeah, so I deleted the item instead of me because the item is closer. So it's just a fun little trap you can set up and play around with. A lot of these are designed for, obviously, interactive play. If anyone decides to play this whenever I finally release it with some friends, there's a lot of interesting things for you to play around with. That's pretty much it for this little one. Don't really know how to sign off. Thanks for watching. See ya.